My stepson told me to shut up. You're not family. So I stepped out of his life, along with the money, the support, and every benefit. Only then did he realize who I really was. Don't forget to subscribe and share your experiences below. Let's get started. When I married Karen, I didn't inherit a family. I stepped into a battlefield. She came with 2 sons, Jacob, 16, and Tyler, 14. Teenagers, yes, but only legally still boys. In every other way, loyalty, cruelty, judgment, they were already men. Not in maturity, but in how they drew lines and dared you to cross them. Their father, Joel, lived just far enough away to be useless and just close enough to be worshipped. He was a phantom with a hero's glow, never punished, never blamed, never here when the real work needed doing. But he always showed up for photos, the birthday candle snapshots, the Christmas morning smiles, the football games where he stood just long enough to be seen. I was the one paying for the cleats, the one standing in the bleachers when the wind bit through my jacket. But they never looked for me in the crowd. The day I moved in, suitcase in one hand, toolbox in the other, Jacob met me at the top of the stairs. His face was stone. His voice was colder than the doorknob I had just turned. I'd rather you weren't here. Not a whisper, not a tantrum, a declaration, rehearsed, delivered like a final notice on a bill I didn't know I owed. Tyler stood behind him, arms crossed, jaw set, silent, but brimming with the same contempt, like I was trespassing in my own marriage. I glanced back at Karen. She was in the kitchen, pretending not to hear, pretending the walls were thicker than they were. I should have walked back out that door, but I didn't. I told myself it was temporary, that boys needed time, that blending families was always messy in the beginning. I believed I could earn them, like trust was a math problem, and if I kept solving for X, eventually the answer would be love. So I gave. When I bought school supplies for my kids, Sam and Casey, I bought double. If Sam needed a winter coat, I made sure Jacob and Tyler got theirs first. I cooked for all of them, drove them all to school, made the dentist appointments when Joel couldn't get out of work, which was often, which was always. Jacob had asthma. I picked up his inhalers, tracked his refills, fought with the insurance company when they changed his coverage. Tyler wanted guitar lessons. I paid for those too. Joel offered advice from a distance. Just keep him motivated. But never a dollar. Not once did either boy say thank you. Not once did they call me Dad. Not even in sarcasm. In the beginning, the silence was bearable. I told myself it was neutral. They didn't hate me. They just didn't know me. But it didn't stay that way. Tyler would leave his cereal bowl half full, milk soaking into the table. Jacob would slam the door if I asked him to take the trash out. If I told them dinner's ready, they wouldn't come. If Karen repeated the exact same words, they'd be at the table before the food cooled. They didn't listen to me. They waited for confirmation. My words needed her signature to be real. It became a ritual. I'd make a request, they'd ignore it, and Karen would step in like the translator in a hostage negotiation. Only they weren't hostages. I wasn't a father in that house. I wasn't even a husband. I was a handyman, a chauffeur, a credit card with feet. Even my own kids saw it. One night, after Jacob skipped his chores and Karen said nothing, Sam looked up at me, small and serious. Why do we follow rules, but they don't? I didn't answer. What could I say? Because I'm too tired to fight? Because I've started to believe that fairness is just another word people use when they've run out of options? I just rubbed his back, told him to finish brushing his teeth, and sat in the hallway until the silence stopped buzzing in my skull. The inequality grew in quiet ways. The fridge was always stocked, but it was me doing the shopping. The laundry got folded, but only after I stayed up past midnight. They never said it, but their actions screamed it. You're not one of us. One evening, Karen and I were watching TV after the kids had gone upstairs. I reached for her hand. She pulled it back without thinking. Sorry, she said. I'm just tired. But her face didn't look tired. It looked pulled, like something inside her was folding inward. She smiled at me the way people smile at strangers who've held the door too long. Polite, distant. I asked her once if she thought the boys would ever accept me. She exhaled through her nose. They just miss their dad. I nodded. Like that was a reason. Like missing Joel excused every cold stare, every slammed door, every sneer that passed between them when I walked into the room. When Sam made the honor roll, I took everyone out to dinner. I made the reservation, paid the bill, even let Tyler pick the restaurant. He ordered steak. Jacob wanted appetizers. I kept the receipt. $218. At the table, Casey gave me a drawing she'd made. "It's us," she said, pointing at the stick figures. "Our family." I smiled, touched. But when I looked closer, I saw it. Me off to the side. No name under my figure. Everyone else labeled. And when Tyler saw it, he leaned in and whispered to her, "Your dad's nobody here, just a tenant." She didn't understand. But I did. They saw me as temporary, as something attached to their mother, not to them. Like a post-it note stuck to a painting, easy to peel off when they were done tolerating it. Karen found a way to never confront it. She always said the right thing just after it would have mattered. "They're still adjusting. They're just kids. It's complicated." But I was the one making it simple. I paid for their camps, their clothes, their phone bills. I wrote checks for school trips. I fixed what broke. And when the power went out, I was the one outside in the rain, flipping breakers while they stayed inside and played Fortnite. I sat in the bleachers when Jacob's team made the playoffs. He never looked up once. I drove 3 hours to get Tyler to a guitar recital after he missed the bus. He didn't thank me. He posted a selfie from the stage and tagged Joel. 3 years of this. 3 years of being the invisible scaffolding holding up a house that everyone else pretended was floating on love. 3 years of quiet humiliations. They left shoes in the hallway after I'd cleared it. Played loud music when I was on work calls. Took long showers and used my razors. They laughed when I talked about chores. "We're not in the military," Jacob smirked once. And when Karen asked them to help out, they did it. Not happily, but instantly. I was the echo. She was the voice. And still I stayed. I stayed because leaving would have made me the villain. Because I thought love meant endurance. That real fathers don't quit. That if I just gave a little more, tried a little harder, I'd finally reach them. But the truth is, you can't reach people who've already built walls around you. They didn't want a father. They wanted a sponsor. And Karen, she wanted peace. Even if that peace came at my expense. It was a Wednesday. Cold rain, gray sky. I remember because I was standing in the driveway, arms full of grocery bags, sleeves soaked through. I'd worked late, stopped to grab dinner, and still managed to pick up almond milk because Tyler had once said he was trying vegan again. Inside, the TV was loud. I heard gunfire, shouting, some video game blaring upstairs. I stepped in, left my wet boots by the mat, juggled bags to keep from dropping anything. Jacob was sprawled on the couch, shoes on the cushions, phone in one hand, other hand digging into a family-size bag of chips I'd bought the day before. I walked past him toward the kitchen and said, casual as anything, "Hey, can you grab a couple bags from the car?" He didn't move, didn't even look up at first. Then slowly, so slowly it felt deliberate, he turned his head, locked eyes with me and said, "You're not my dad. Don't tell me what to do." 12 words. 12 words that made every sacrifice shrink into dust. My hands didn't shake. My voice didn't rise. I just stood there, water dripping from the hem of my coat onto the hardwood, and looked at him like I was seeing him for the first time. Not as the boy I'd driven to urgent care at midnight, or the teenager I'd defended when the school threatened suspension, but as someone I'd fed, clothed, protected, and who still believed I was nothing. He didn't blink. He said it like it was fact, not insult, like it had been sitting in his throat for months, waiting for a clean shot. I didn't answer. I turned, walked to the kitchen, and set the bags down. Tyler was there, leaning against the counter, scrolling his phone. Sam came around the corner, eager like he always was, and grabbed 2 more bags from the front door. No one asked him. He just did it. Tyler snorted. "Teacher's pet," he muttered. Sam froze. looked at me, looked at him, then kept walking. I saw his ears go red. Later that night, Casey was sketching at the table. She's always drawing, always watching with those big eyes, silent but absorbing everything. She showed me the paper, the house, for stick figures outside. Her, Sam, me, and Karen. No Jacob, no Tyler. I asked her why. They said you're not part of our real family, she whispered. That you're just a tenant. I felt something twist in my gut. Tenant. Not father. Not even stepfather. Just some man renting space in their lives. And not even my own space borrowed. Conditional. I put the drawing on the fridge. Not because it was sweet. Because it was true. The line had been spoken. The judgment passed. And Karen? When I told her what Jacob had said, her face pinched. But not with anger. With caution. He didn't mean it. He looked me in the eye. They're just kids, she whispered. But that wasn't a defense. That was permission. She wasn't shocked. She wasn't outraged. She was trying to smooth the edge of a blade she'd watched being forged for years. I asked her, flat out, do you think I deserve this? She looked down, stirred her tea, didn't answer. That was my answer. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the walls whisper all the things they'd heard that no one wanted to admit. You're not my dad. You're just a tenant. Don't tell me what to do. 3 years of giving, and I'd been reduced to a stranger with a mortgage. By morning, I'd made my decision. No shouting. No slam doors. I didn't need to perform rage to validate my pain. I just needed to act. I walked into my office, shut the door, started with the obvious. Canceled the health insurance for Jacob and Tyler. I'd added them to my plan when we got married. Premiums shot up. I paid anyway. Logged into the bank. Froze the debit cards I'd issued for their allowance. $150 a month. No thank yous. Just overdrafts. Called the car dealership. Told them I'd be reclaiming the vehicle registered in my name, the one Jacob drove, but didn't maintain. Logged into the sports accounts. Canceled Tyler's guitar lessons. Jacob's football training. The subscriptions. The Uber account tied to my card. Logged into the streaming apps. Disney Plus, Netflix, Spotify, all gone. They weren't watching my shows. They weren't listening to my music. So why was I paying for their comfort? Every click felt like a stitch being removed from a wound that never healed right. I didn't rush. I wanted to feel every part of it. When I was done, I sat back, folded my hands, and stared at the wall for a long time. Karen came in just as I was finishing, saw the tabs open, realized what I'd done. What is this? Freedom, I said. She blinked. Her lips parted. No sound. They want me to be nobody, I said. So let's make it official. I left that afternoon. Didn't pack a suitcase. Just took my keys, wallet, and the charger I liked. Got in my truck. Drove 3 towns over to a rental I kept for work trips. Didn't answer my phone when it rang. It was Karen. The second time it rang, it was her again. I let it buzz out. The third call, voicemail. Please come back. They're just kids. We can fix this. But the voice didn't sound urgent. It sounded cornered. Like someone who just realized the house they thought was made of stone was really just drywall and wishful thinking. I didn't call back. That night, I slept better than I had in years. In the morning, I got coffee from a gas station, sat on a park bench, watched a squirrel dig through trash, and realized I hadn't thought about work, bills, or the boys once. Back at the house, I imagined them waking up, trying to log into their games, wondering why the internet wasn't working, why Tyler's card was declined, why Jacob's car wouldn't start, and Karen, walking through the house like it had a new draft, like the foundation had shifted and she couldn't tell why. She'd open the fridge, see it half empty. She'd text me, "Where are you?" I wouldn't answer. Later that week, I returned briefly, not to move back in, just to collect some documents, some tools. Karen was there. So were the boys. They didn't say a word. They sat at the kitchen table, watching me like I was a storm they didn't know how to name. Karen followed me down the hall. You can't just abandon them. I didn't, I said. I just stopped sponsoring their disrespect. She flinched. I picked up a folder, checked the contents, medical receipts, camp forms, all with my signature at the bottom. If I'm not their dad, I said, then they don't get the perks of having one. She tried again. They're scared. They didn't think you'd actually. That's the problem, I said. They thought I was bluffing, that I'd keep paying, keep staying, keep bending, no matter what they said. I looked her in the eye. Now they know better. At first, they strutted. That's what people don't understand about entitlement. It doesn't die quietly. Performs. And in that house, the performance was loud. The boys walked taller. Karen played the peacekeeper. They acted like the removal of one man me had cleared the air, like the system was better without the burden of my rules, my routines, my voice. Jacob posted a story, a selfie at the dinner table with the caption, "Just us again." Tyler liked it. Karen didn't stop them. The next week, Joel showed up. They called him Dad in front of Karen, loud enough to echo. He brought pizza and that smug half-smile, the kind men wear when they've dodged consequence their whole lives. He cracked jokes, sat on the couch, let the boys call him a legend for buying fast food with a gift card. And then he left, like always, disappearing into whatever version of life let him sleep at night without guilt. Meanwhile, reality started whispering. The Wi-Fi slowed, then stopped. Tyler had used too much data trying to stream a concert. Karen called the provider. They told her the account had been closed. Next came the cars. Jacob sat in the driveway, dust collecting under its tires. The registration had been in my name. So had the insurance. So had the gas card. Karen told him to call Joel. He did. Joel told him to figure it out. Then came the fees. The school emailed about overdue balances. Jacob's football season wasn't covered. Tyler's guitar teacher sent a Venmo request with a note, "Final notice." Karen emailed me. I didn't open it. By week 3, the house had gone quiet. No music. No game nights. No packages arriving at the door. Tyler started biking to school. Jacob missed practice. Their swagger turned to silence. Karen tried again. They didn't understand. They thought you'd always be there. We all did. The word "we" sat heavy in my throat. She used it when it suited her. Abandoned it when things went wrong. She asked if we could talk. I said I'd listen. Once. We met in a parking lot. Neutral ground. She looked older. Not tired, just undone. Her makeup sat uneven. Her hands trembled against the coffee cup she held like a lifeline. "They're sorry," she said. "They just didn't know what they were saying." "They knew." She nodded. Slowly. Then, "Jacob called you." I didn't react. "He said he's sorry. That he was wrong. Tyler too." I watched her as she said it. She didn't look proud. She looked humiliated. Because it wasn't just the boys who had failed. It was her. "They want you to come home." I took a sip from my coffee. Let the heat hold my answer for a moment. "I'll consider it," I said. "But only under new terms." She blinked, confused. "They want a father again?" I said. "Fine, but not for free." They wanted a provider, a protector, punching bag that didn't bruise. They wanted me to fill the void, now that they'd learned Joel was a ghost and reality costs money. But if they wanted me back, they would pay a price. Respect. It didn't have to be love. I wasn't chasing hugs or hand-drawn cards. I didn't need them to pretend I was Joel or call me Dad in front of their friends. But I would not return to a house that treated me like a transaction. Karen didn't argue. She just nodded. Not out of agreement, out of defeat. A week later, I returned. The boys were there. They stood in the kitchen like statues, unsure of how to look me in the eye. Karen lingered in the doorway, as if she couldn't decide whether to greet me or apologize again. I didn't hug them, didn't smile. I looked around the house like I was touring a rental. Then I said one thing. Respect isn't optional. It's the cost of being under my roof. They didn't argue. Jacob muttered, "Thanks for coming back." Tyler followed with a quiet, "Sorry." It sounded rehearsed. but rehearsed was better than defiance. I walked past them, put down my bag, sat in my chair. That night we ate together. Nobody talked much. The silence wasn't hostile, it was cautious, like everyone was waiting to see if this fragile arrangement would hold. In the days that followed, things changed. Slowly, they cleaned their dishes, picked up their socks, didn't raise their voices. They said thank you, awkwardly, like the words tasted foreign, but they said it. Karen cooked more, stopped hovering. Let me speak without translating it into mom language. There were slips. Tyler forgot to mow the lawn. Jacob rolled his eyes once when I reminded him to check the oil. But he caught himself, corrected his tone. That was new. And I didn't rush back into generosity. I didn't restart the payments. I set expectations. They would earn comfort. They would earn privileges. Because for too long I had been giving to ghosts. And now, they weren't family. Not yet. But they were no longer strangers either. They were tenants, finally paying rent in the currency I asked for, respect. They returned like ghosts trying to reclaim a house they once burned. No eye rolls. No arrogance. No muttered slurs under their breath. Just silence. Thick, coiled, and watchful. I didn't ask why. I didn't offer grace. I met them at the door and said one thing. This isn't your home. It's a house you live in under conditions. Jacob lowered his eyes. Tyler clenched his jaw like he wanted to protest but had finally learned to keep it shut. Karen stood behind them, clutching the car keys like a hostage negotiator caught between two gun barrels. They stepped inside like tenants, not sons. And I let them, because they had made the rules. They were the ones who drew the line. All I'd done was honor it. I watched them reclaim their old rooms like strangers walking through a museum exhibit of their former selves. The posters still hung on the walls. The drawers still filled with clothes I'd bought. But everything smelled different. Less like home. More like memory. They came back, but nothing returned with them. Not trust. Not warmth. Only transaction. And in that vacuum I found clarity. I laid it all out that first night. No yelling. No ultimatums. Just rules, simple, sharp, and enforced. Dishes done by 8 p.m. No slamming doors. No foul language directed at anyone. You clean what you use. You speak when spoken to. You say thank you. And the last one, you do not call this house yours until you act like someone who deserves to live here. They nodded. Quiet. Unsure. Tyler whispered, yes, sir. That broke something in Karen. I saw it. Her shoulders twitched like she wanted to step in, soften the moment, rescue them from the structure I was building brick by brick. But she didn't. Maybe she knew better now. That week things held. Barely. They helped carry groceries in, took out the trash, ate what was made for dinner without sneering. Jacob even asked quietly but clearly if I could help him review a practice test. I did. I didn't gloat. Didn't say, asterisk, you see now? Asterisk, because this wasn't about revenge. It was about rebalancing something that had been broken since the day I walked in and heard, I'd rather you weren't here. They were trying. I could admit that. But trying isn't atonement. Effort doesn't erase contempt. It only lays the first brick in the path back from the edge. One night, Sam asked me if everything was okay now. I told him the truth. It's quieter. That's not the same thing. Karen tried to pull things back. She'd cook more often, put her phone away during dinner, ask everyone to sit together like we used to, before the fracture, before the declaration. Sometimes it worked. Other times, the boys would eat in silence, eyes glued to their plates, like the food might accuse them if they looked up. But they obeyed. Always. Not because they loved me. Because they knew now, I was no longer the man they could push without consequence. And that's what fatherhood had become in that house. Not warmth, not guidance, not care. Authority. A boundary. I stopped covering extras. No more last-minute Uber rides. No spontaneous purchases. No gift cards for grades. Everything was earned. When Jacob asked for help paying his application fees, I said, write me a one-page statement. What have you learned this year? He blinked. Thought I was joking. I wasn't. He turned it in 3 days later. Typed. Printed. Double-spaced. I read it. Every word. Twice. He wrote. Asterisk. I learned that people who love you can stop helping you if you treat them like they're disposable. I learned that respect isn't a given. It's a currency. And I spent all mine thinking the account would never run dry. Asterisk. It wasn't an apology. But it was the closest thing I'd gotten. I paid the fees. When Tyler asked for new headphones, I told him the truth. No. You'll get them when I hear respect without a reason behind it. He nodded. Didn't argue. They still call Joel. Less often now. Sometimes, after a call, they come out of their rooms looking deflated. Like whatever image they'd built of him was thinning, turning transparent. He doesn't show up. Not anymore. Maybe he's embarrassed. Maybe he's relieved. But either way, I don't fill that space for them. I gave them what they said they wanted, distance. And now they live inside it. Karen watches all this with a kind of haunted attentiveness. Like someone nursing a wound they're not allowed to speak about. She's more careful now. Gentler in tone. Less quick to correct me when I speak. She asked me once, late at night, if I hated them. I said no. I don't hate them. I've just stopped bleeding for them. That's the thing about unconditional love. It only exists when both sides agree on what the conditions were supposed to be. Mine were simple: show up, try. Respect me like a man who gives everything he has to keep your world from collapsing. They failed that, and now we live in the consequence. This isn't a victory. It's a contract. They walk the line. I provide the roof. But the warmth, that's gone. That's not something you can ask for back once you've spit on it. Some nights, I see Jacob watching me when he thinks I'm not looking. Not with fear. Not with resentment. With something else. Maybe recognition. Maybe guilt. Maybe both. He doesn't say much. But he doesn't roll his eyes anymore. And that matters. Tyler still keeps a distance. But when I walked in one day and saw him folding laundry without being told, I didn't say anything. And neither did he. That's how we speak now. Through acts, not words. I stopped needing to be called Dad. But I started demanding to be seen as the man who showed up when their real one didn't. And I think they finally see it, even if they'll never say it. Because sometimes the price of being ignored isn't raising your voice. It's raising the stakes. They learned that now. And I'm done teaching. Was I cruel? Maybe. But after years of giving everything, my time, my money, my dignity, I finally did the only thing that mattered. I left, and I made them feel what life looks like without me. So I'll ask you, if a man feeds a house, shelters it, fuels it, repairs it, but is never thanked, never heard, never loved, does that man still owe his devotion? And if he walks away, not in anger but in clarity, is he a villain? Or just a man who finally heard what the silence had been saying all along? Tell me, would you have stayed? Or would you have done what I did? Walked away, and taken the warmth with you,